can imagine how in an atomized society, fear would increase, anxiety linked to fear would increase, and courage would decrease, because I look at it this way: if you've got nothing to fight for, now loving relationships, so a whole bunch of people woke up when they said with these mandates that they were coming for the kids, for example. Yeah, you noticed parents suddenly thinking, "What the fuck?" And then mothers groups started emerging, and then nurses started speaking up because they've all got kids.
Right.
So if you don't have loving relationships, so like I've often posted online, and I'm very open, by the way, and as you know, in anything you hear me say publicly, I'll say privately, and it's why my show, is literally on a decentralized platform, encouraging decentralized funding. It's a Substack and this. That's how I want to live. I want people to know where I'm coming from.
Open source.
Yeah, open source, yeah. So how do we get to that? What was I saying?
We were talking about the cowardice in the academy.
Right. So I was working in a comfy, cushy role, on a national mainstream. Why am I prepared to shipwreck that? Because I'm reading in the press, they're coming for my 5-year-old. Now, there's nothing worse. So I've often posted, that's how I got to it. I was like, I post, I'm open, right? So I often posted that meme of Rambo 1, First Blood with Sylvester Stallone. And you know where it says with the text on the meme, and it says, wait until those who just wanted to be left alone, right?
Yeah.
Have to come, right? So I saw myself as just having a cushy life. And you come for my kid, right, sorry. Now I'm just going to have to fight every single one of you at once at the same time.
Yeah.
And I don't give a fuck, right? Because you're saying you're going to inject my kid without my consent, because it's somehow an illness that has been proven as a matter of parliamentary record in Hansard, has an infection fatality rate of 0.096%, which is comparable to the flu. And you're telling me you can inject our children at 5 years old without our say-so. So what you do there, the value of a loving relationship is it provides that courage without even needing it.
Right.
Now, if you can atomize society and if you can make people live in these shoeboxes, back to that whole Roger Scruton philosophy, it's really important, because you're concerned about, say, courage, and I'm, say, concerned about, say, family or, say, community. It's all the same thing, because I believe they're interrelated, right? Some of the bravest warriors, what are they fighting for? Not money. Yeah, you find this concept of the kamikaze, right? The concept of the shaheed. Put aside the one that kills civilians with them, because it happens even without civilian targets, because that's where it's originally come from. It's come in a military context. Just the concept I'm talking about, the raw concept of it. They're never fighting for money, unless it's for money because when they die, it's going to go to their kids who are starving in the gutter. In other words, they're not fighting for money, right? They're fighting for love. And actually radicalization often begins with that. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah. It's always a nice emotion it begins with, a concern, a love, And so I think if you atomize people, you can do two things. You can remove anything worth fighting for from their lives, but also any emotions they do have, it's a lot easier then to steer those and get to that point where the road to hell was paved with good intentions. Because whatever good intentions they have left, those good intentions exist in isolation. It's so much easier to hijack an isolated person's good intentions than it is to hijack somebody who's embedded in loving relationships, because they always have other people to think about. So their ideas are harder to hijack because they don't exist in isolation. They exist for other people to care for. So I can't just come and take you, because anything I say to you is going to be good for you. You're going to also evaluate whether it's good for Heather and for your kids and for your community,
Yeah, so one of my insights in evolutionary space that I think needs to be explored is lineage.
Yeah.
So there's a debate in my field about whether individual selection and kin selection are the way to think about it, or what's called group selection. Group selection is nonsense. The real deal is lineage, right? And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about something that, you are a temporary manifestation of something durable. And that is why people will actually willingly die for a cause in general, is that cause is central to the well-being of their lineage going forward. So this is vital stuff, which raises an important question, right? We can see a radical failure.
Imagine you take away the desire for that lineage in the first place. Chemically,
Right.
This is what's going on, dude. It's all, I join the dots in this way, right? So this whole thing about experimenting on kids with these puberty blockers.
Yeah. That's exactly where I'm going.
Go for it. Sorry, man.
No. I mean, we see the same picture, which is that across the board, look, a parent who is told, you know what we've just discovered? That there aren't boys and girls, that, sexuality is not binary, and that, you can be born in the wrong body, happens all the time. And when that happens, we have no obligation but to go at you, no alternative but to go at you with, surgery and pharmaceuticals, right? The proper answer to that is go fuck yourself, right? That is not a reasonable approach. That is my child. You are, let's put it this way. Let's put it in the real terms. There is a reason that we universally despise child molesters, that nothing is so reliably going to raise in us our anger as the idea of a child molester. Why? Because a child molester takes somebody who has done nothing wrong and maims them, psychologically maims them in a way that they never escape, right? So the point is, look, anybody who's going to maim your child, you are allowed to have, frankly,
strong views about.
You are allowed to defend that person and in the strongest possible terms, right? Now, the fact that the person who is going to maim your child is a doctor doesn't much matter. The fact that they have the backing of some academics who claim to have discovered that sex doesn't exist,
dude, no. This is the thing, this is what it's white. Look, sorry, I'm not getting undressed, but
I get it.
Right? Yeah. Oh, sorry, but we can, this is important. We can just do this and you can refit me once I've done it, yeah? Sorry about that. So we'll just let it roll. It's cool, man. It's natural. Right. So basically, don't panic, producer man. Let it be natural. So I'll fit this back on, in a second, but you know where I'm going with this, because this is important for people to, considering what we've just come through. So as you can see, right? See that, right? That scar there happened to me. I was born in Britain. My mom is an immigrant from Pakistan. And she, from the age of 0 to 3, took me to Pakistan. And at some point, somebody put something in my arm. Now, I don't know about you, but injections shouldn't look like that by the age of 44. Now, till this day, I don't know what that is, but I'd probably find out. However, it's certainly not something that isn't given today, because I don't see kids with that kind of scar on their arms anymore. Now, that was done in Pakistan. Now, you will remember on Rogan, I spoke about the fact, it is now an undeniable, indisputable fact that the CIA ran fake hepatitis B vaccine programs in Pakistan because they formally apologized for it. So it's important I say this, because sometimes people like, Maajid, you're one of the most prominent vocal critics of the mandates, yet you're double jabbed. People need to understand, people have been jabbing me all my life without me knowing what the fuck they've been putting into me, including in jail. So when I was asked to take 2 jabs, for me, it was no big deal, because I've already got half, I don't know what's in my body. There's another one here. That's the one, I don't know what was put inside me, right, in prison. The dude next door to me in the cell died of hepatitis B, and he was my friend. His name was Hisham. And he dropped dead in his cell, and we all started rioting that night, right? But I don't know what was put in me, but it was around the same time. So you mentioned hepatitis B and he died in it, and I know what happened in Pakistan with these fake hepatitis B vaccines. Now, this kind of behavior is a scar. It is not just a physical scar, right? So you talk about maiming children. So imagine you've gone through that and you're an adult, and then somebody says they're going to start doing that to your kid over my dead fucking body.
Right. That's it. The point is, look, a parent is built, right, to be a wall, to prevent people from harming that child. And the idea that we are now seeing this failure across the board, right? How many parents have revealed that they are actually going to tolerate this nonsense? It's incredible. It's a total failure of the understanding of what the role of parent is. And so, we see that with respect to the mandates. We see that with respect to this sudden shift in our sense about trans and what it obligates parents to do. And, of course, I'm not uncompassionate about the fact there are trans people. It's not an easy way to be, and frankly, the earlier that they can access help, the better.
I only talk about the children. Right? Don't put these chemicals into children. Let them grow up and make their own minds up. They might be gay, they might be lesbian. We don't know, right? Let them grow up first.
Right.
You're I think on the adults debate, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But my main concern, because they were doing it here at the Tavistock Clinic without parental consent on prepubescent kids.
You're talking about...
It's been stopped now.
You're talking about the vaccine mandate.
No, I'm talking about
the puberty blockers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a total failure of one's obligation as a parent. And that indicates something about the level of coherence of our own understanding of what we're supposed to be doing on this planet.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. No, but I want to bring you back to this, right? So this is obvious. What we've just spoken about should be obvious. And yet there are men, and I use that word on purpose, right? There are men who do have kids and have partners who are living in the same society as us, who are being told the same thing, that their kids will be injected without their consent, and these men didn't discover a problem in that happening, yeah? And I'm still trying to work out why, if I've taught you ABC, I can see why you didn't first learn ABC, especially if you're coming from a different language, and ABC is a new language for you, and I'll help you learn it. But once I've taught you that, what is it? Why? Because if the most base instinct is that we can identify this protection of the lineage, what fails in the circuitry of that person if you hit the thing that should be the one thing they're alive for, if you strip it down to its bare essentials, right? And that still hasn't shocked them. What's going on there in your view?
I think it is a failure of heuristics. So the mind cannot process everything as it is and make decisions. It's too much, right? So what we do is we make useful simplifications in order to do the job. And in fact, you can see this at a neurological level in your visual system, right? If you were to process each firing of a receptor in your eye and try to make sense of how the room was based on all that individual data, you'd never be able to process it, fast enough to walk down the stairs. So what we do is we have little rules of thumb built into our visual system that radically simplify the job of figuring out where the objects are. We perceive edges, for example, right? Edges are very easy to see because the chromatism changes. So we have all of these simplifications, and most of the time, it works so beautifully. But, we've all been fascinated by optical illusions. Yeah. Optical illusions are just things that hover between two interpretations so that your mind flips back and forth trying to figure out which one it is, right? And so the point is, if your experience has been, look, there are a bunch of vaccines and I take them and I don't really know much about their safety, but I'm told they're safe enough. In fact, I'm told they're very safe. And what's more, I'm told that I'm much safer having them than not having them. And so far, it's been okay. And then somebody says, oh my God, there's a terrifying disease, and we have one of these vaccines, and you're going to have to take it, and it's really safe and effective. The point is, it hits you at, I've never questioned a vaccine before, and now suddenly I'm being told I definitely need this one, and it's more important than usual. And what do I know? And I think, what Heather and I were saying was people misunderstood because the delivery mechanism was a syringe. Yeah. They thought this was a variation on a theme that they had already made the call about. And so what alarmed Heather and me was we could look at the novelty of what was in that vaccine.
Do you know perhaps the preparation you're making there, you're alluding to when they've already made a call on something? Think back to the whole Wakefield saga, yeah? And the MMR. So I remember, because my eldest son, I have two boys, and the one from the previous marriage I referenced, he's now 21. So he's the baby back then that we had to make that decision about MMR. And after much research, we did. But we really did pause on that. At the time, I was still an Islamist, right? And so we were having all these debates as Islamists, and so we didn't trust the system. Yeah. I really had to look into it and then made the decision, okay, I'll do it. But it took us a couple of months, both me and my then wife, to actually say, we're going to do that. But then, of course, I don't need to tell the rest of the story, the whole scandal then that happened, and obviously Wakefield got struck off, and now, others speak in his defense. I don't want to get into that debate, but I do want to say that debate happening, I think that the way in which it was concluded in the public perception acted as that rehearsal that you've just, I think, alluded to. I don't know what you think.
Oh, I think this absolutely happened. And I also think that they have overplayed their hand here because they have revealed what they are willing to do and to lie about. And it now has many people. I mean, look, my kids are fully vaccinated up until the point that we're talking about COVID, right? We vaccinated them with everything. Now, look, I was a biologist then too, and as is Heather, and our decision was very, very clear, right? It makes sense to delay these things as long as possible. Why? Because if they're going to harm you, the amount of harm they will do will be reduced the more of your development has already been completed normally, right? So we delayed every vaccine to the reasonable point that you could delay it, right? So what that tells you...
So what about the MMR? Like, did I make the right decision? I mean, not that you're I should be asking and Bush this, but in your opinion, not the right, we don't want to give medical advice.
Right.
Would you repeat what I just said? Would you do that?
Here's where I am now, and this is what's going to get us in trouble, okay? Now, having seen what they did over COVID, having learned what I have about vaccines, I now do not trust the system that produces them.
Yeah, this is where you and I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
I am still an enthusiast about vaccination, but I am livid that we don't have a system that can be trusted to produce them and that I can look at and say, that's safe enough, not so much on that one.